Good day, good people. This is Lifting the Veil, and I'm Cari-Lee. You're listening to freethinkradio.com. It is June the 3rd, 2011. Today we're going to be talking chemtrails with my guests, Don Haze and Steve, and my husband, John. Because today's show I was prompted by, actually, Don Haze, who's with us today. To talk about chemtrails, because there's a lot of disinformation out there, and there's a lot of questions, and there's a lot of semi-answers, I guess. And so we spent the week looking through links and looking at different articles and whatnot. Steve, excuse John, he's sick. Steve, Don, and myself, and John and I, we do all our research together, so we're all going to talk chemtrails. Don, Steve, John, how you guys doing?
I'm doing all right.
Steve, how you be?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me on the show, Cari.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you both for coming on the show. John kind of, he gets roped into it. Right, baby?
I don't mind.
Okay, so the first thing that came up for me today was from the Intel Hub, and I'm just going to go over it, and then you guys can give me your thoughts on what I read. I should probably post this into the chat so that everybody else can take a look at it too, so here I go, and there's that article that I'm going to start reading now. Secret presidential chemtrail budget uncovered. Congress exceeds billions to spray populists like roaches. Dun, dun, dun. The budget Obama didn't want you to know about. Geo-engineering has now been defined as the deliberate large-scale manipulation of the planetary environment to counteract anthropogenic climate change. The Royal Society, 2009. Recently, the question has been asked, what in the world are they spraying? The documentary with the same name answers many of those questions. For any of you who have not watched What in the World Have You Been Spraying, please run out and go get it. It's free online. You can also support the people who created it and help to bring this information out there for you by buying a copy of it. If anybody in the back area, and you don't know there's back people behind me kind of doing stuff for me if I ask them to. We all have those little people behind us on this show. If anybody could put what in the world have they been spraying in the free think chat, that'd be great. The question the world is now asking is, who in the world is spraying us? The world is now demanding answers and accountability. As an introduction to this article, we will first cover information to familiarize the uninformed readers as to the core facts and information so that a more complete understanding is possible, given this complex issue. A recent report by CBC Atlanta detailed how some local citizens are outraged that such crimes against humanity are being carried out right before our eyes in secret. In the report, Senator Johnny why these names, blings, I know how you feel. Johnny Isakson, whatever, was interviewed on the subject of chemtrails, saying, quote, "That is a theory that some people have, but there's no evidence this is happening. This is not happening." Of course it isn't. It looks as if members of the government's upper echelon, now how can I say a word like that and I can't say his last name, and even members of the Senate will go to extreme lengths to suppress this vital information from reaching the American people. Not to mention they signed off on the multi-billion-dollar-a-year budgets in the economic crisis with little to no transparency to the public. In regards to aerosol spraying into the Earth's atmosphere, a recent update to data assembled by the Cari-Lee Institute reveals the chemicals used and their respective levels of concentration. The toxic levels that are being used in these aerosols goes beyond shocking. It would appear that these levels are indeed criminal in EPA standards. Anybody want to start talking now about any of this? Because we can always go back to the note.
Well, this article here is talking about a geoengineering budget, and I don't see the source for it.
As you go farther down in it?
Yeah, I'm going through it now, but the one thing I wanted to address first is that there was a CFR meeting, a Council on Foreign Relations meeting, where they said that there was millions being spent to confuse the public about geoengineering. So there's a lot of disinformation out there, and it takes a lot of research to find the truth.
Well,
and I'm another thing I want to say is none of us here are experts on the issue, so please don't take our word for it. Do the researching for yourself, and we're going to provide the links for you.
Yeah, for sure. None of us are sitting here saying that we have the absolute truth. We're all just, this is a big think tank today. This is us sharing and trying to figure out things and do it in a way that, you know, other people can listen to. And if you have questions, you ask them by all means in the chat or call in. Not for a bit, though, because I'm sure that we're going to babble quite a bit for the first little bit. Has anybody seen the CBC doc for the chemtrail spraying that they put out a couple months ago? I can't even remember the name of it.
They put out a whole documentary on it?
Yeah, they did, on the geoengineering. What the heck was the name of it? Oh. But they talked about it, and they showed the positive and negative, but it was it was very one-sided for sure. But they did show that I don't know. It was like a veiled bit of propaganda that you could see that, yeah, there's a downside to it, but it's not that much of a downside, and it's not that big of a deal. But there are no questions. Playing God with the weather, that's what it was called. Let me go find that. Anyway, go ahead, somebody else talk.
Okay, so, well, in this CFR meeting, I posted the link in the chat. There's a video to it, and the one guy in it says, first of all, of course, there's a lot of money getting spent to make sure that every substantial portion of the public stays totally confused about this. And I mean, it's been really quite pernicious, but there's been literally tens of millions of dollars spent on every little thing that comes along that might, you know, relate to some uncertainty.
Well, of course, because they don't want anybody to have a definitive, because if there's a definitive, then nobody would want it to happen, and it wouldn't happen. There can't be a definitive answer to it, and everybody's got to be at war with each other. That it seems like that's the main goal for everything. But let's get into what they've shown to be in the chemtrails. Does anybody have any links to that, or am I going to go back to that?
Yeah, I got a link for that.
Okay.
It's toxic levels of barium and aluminum found in several Mojave County, Arizona residents, and it's fairly new. And they took blood tests, and they all have elevated levels of aluminum and barium, which are outlined in the supposed proposals for geoengineering.
That's lovely. Now let's talk about some of the myths. Some of them, some of the information we've been given, and then I don't know, go that way. Okay, so they're to reflect the sun upwards so that the planet doesn't heat too much. Is that what a lot of people are saying? Is that an agreed term? The definition?
Well, that's what the official thing is. They say that that's what it's for, but we're not quite sure, because it doesn't seem that these chemtrails actually do anything to help cool the planet. They actually heat it up.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a link for that too.
That's a myth. It's just one of the myths that are out there. And I mean, okay, you've got that, and then at the opposite end of the spectrum, you find disinformation, or I guess it's the way you take it, spraying chemtrails to hide incoming objects from us, like Elenin or Nibiru.
That I don't really buy, because if that was true, then they would be spraying in every country, and it seems that these operations are only ongoing in NATO countries. In like Europe and America. It doesn't seem that they're spraying in Africa or Asia, so I don't think that has anything to do with it, but I could be wrong.
They started spraying in Japan around the time of right before the earthquake, though, didn't they?
Yeah, actually, I was looking at the chemtrail map. Give me a second, I'll get you a link to it. And I did some research on chemtrails in Japan, and I found about 5 instances of chemtrails in Japan between the year 2000 and 2010. And then all of a sudden, right before the earthquake, I found about 5 videos that were just from about a week before the earthquake that happened in Japan. Okay, here's the link for the chemtrail map. If you have any chemtrail photos or videos, please submit them to this map and help it get bigger. There's a lot of places in here that probably have spraying ongoing, but they're not shown on the map. Like here in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, it says that on the map there's nothing there, but I'm sure that there is spraying ongoing there. So if there's anyone in Saskatchewan or Manitoba listening, put your chemtrail photos onto the chemtrail map.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. We should do that too. We've been taking to the maps that are out there because I have heaps of pictures. And you see chemtrails and they're so erratic the way that they do what they do. Sometimes they're spraying on top of the clouds. Sometimes they're spraying in clear skies. Sometimes they're starting in the morning. Sometimes they're starting after 1. Sometimes they're spraying at night. It's just there's no continuity.
The thing is like, okay, they're putting barium, aluminum, other phosphates into the atmosphere, into our skies. They're not just killing our water. They're not just killing our food. They're not just killing our earth. They're not just killing us. I mean, this is just because they're doing it over known areas like North America, South America, and certain parts of Europe. Australia. It's a global thing. Because if you think about it, that stuff gets into the jet streams and goes all over the place. Then you can look at it. Phosphate and aluminum will become electrostatic if magnified. I mean, they're covering our Earth in false clouds that is keeping the levels of gases that are coming in and out at a set rate, and it's more than one thing, I think. I mean, the things I've researched and the things I've looked at and whatnot, I mean, you can point everything that they can use chemtrails for an association with HAARP. You can see the fact that they're hiding things. They're trying to kill off our food sources, so they bring in GMO foods so the population has to buy it. I mean, it's one thing, and it's something that stands out with every human being in those areas can look up in the sky and say, well, wait a second, that doesn't look right.
Well, the public has been conditioned to believe that they are normal contrails.
That's ridiculous.
One thing, I made a little video clip of about 10 different commercials that have, like, subliminals of chemtrails in them. I'll just post that in the chat.
We were watching Cars with our kids, and they have treadmark chemtrails in the sky. Treadmark chemtrails, and it's because it's cars, right? And it's all a bunch of cars and treadmill. I was like, treadmark chemtrails, you've got to be kidding me.
But look at the way chemtrails form in the sky. They almost look like a pattern before they spread out.
But just ridiculous. And Steve, feel free to jump in whenever you like, please.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm just listening and trying to get a feel for what's going on.
We're all over the place.
That's good, you got to be somewhere. For the, some of the metal particulates that were found, and this is according to the movie What in the World Are They Spraying? And some of the metal that was detected in that movie was the alumina particles, barium, strontium, cadmium, and titanium. and those were from test results in like California and Lake Tahoe, California, Mount Shasta, California.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, that's one thing I want to address is cloud seeding. A lot of people, when they see cloud seeding, they think that that's what the chemtrails are. But if you just do some very basic research on cloud seeding, you'll find out that it's not the same thing. They're small planes that have flares that shoot out silver iodide into the clouds to help them seed them. And the chemtrails are they're a lot higher. They're sprayed out of jet airplanes, and they have different chemicals in them.
Yeah,
cloud seeding is no good. Like, it's not the chemtrails, but it is also going to hurt our environment because they're still spraying chemicals into the sky, and they're changing the weather.
Now, is it not true that the farmers are paying for this? You mentioned this to me.
Here in Calgary, the farmers, their crop loss insurance actually goes to pay for hail suppression that the Weather Modification Inc. Does. You can just Google Weather Modification Incorporated, and there's a website that'll tell you all about it.
That's just madness. Because there's nothing good about cloud seeding either, really. There's no necessity to be messing. This is just my perspective. Why are you messing with the weather? Why you can't? And I don't mean to say play God, but it is. Why are you playing with the laws of nature and creation? I just don't. I don't mean creation on the not try. I don't want to start a war here. But I don't see the good in any of it. And what's his name that did the seminar, Don, at the University of Calgary last week or the week before?
Yeah, We Are Change Calgary actually got the opportunity to meet David Keith. He's a professor of earth sciences at the University of Calgary, and he's very deeply involved in geo-engineering. The group, when they went to talk to him, they didn't really have too much information, too much proof to show him. So he kind of just blew it all off as a conspiracy theory. And he's also saying that the global warming is a major problem that we need to fix. Another thing, like this guy he supposedly studied physics, and when he was asked about the collapse of the Twin Towers in New York, he said that it was caused by 2 planes hitting the towers.
Yeah, so he's so far up it that it's not funny. And this is the same man that says that although we have no evidence of anything, that we're just borrowing on the backs of our grandchildren. And I'm pretty sure that's a direct quote, the borrowing on the backs of our grandchildren. How dare we? How dare he speak on behalf of everybody else? Who cares what happens to our grandkids as long as we're fine now? What a mentality that is. And it's not that we're fine now.
Another argument that David Keith had was if these operations were ongoing, we would know about it because in a free society, the government cannot keep secrets. I think that's pretty funny because, of course, we don't live in a free society, and the government has many secrets, and we wouldn't know if they were keeping secrets because they're secret.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, there's a lot of different connections that chemtrails have to different things. People have connected chemtrails to HAARP. People have taken pictures of the rainbow ripples that are going through the chemtrails. Did anybody do any, or does anybody have any thoughts on that? No?
Yeah, in the movie What in the World Are They Spraying, they get a little bit into that, and they relate HAARP to the subject of geoengineering because there was a United States Air Force document called Owning the Weather by 2025, which is obviously hinting towards weather modification. Yeah, the movie's pretty overall pretty good. It has a lot of information on it.
It does. It is extremely, it's one of those must-see movies, documentaries that explains quite a bit and looks into quite a bit and gives you quite a bit of answers, because they do go in and do independent studies, and he does go to see things for himself. Like when I saw the bark being ripped off the trees in Hawaii, I was heartbroken. It just made me sick. And he's coming out with a new movie too, isn't he, Don? You had sent me a link to, I can't remember the name of it. I'm sorry, I'm not as prepared as I should be. There's a crazy morning.
There's a new film coming out called The Great Culling, I believe. And I think it's going to be covering the chemtrail issue, the GMOs, the fluoride, all of it. So let me get a link for that. Hold on.
That's going to be something worth watching and investigating a little bit more, because we've all, between the chemtrails and the GMO and the fluoride and all the stuff that, and talking about and having lithium in water and whatnot, everything that they're doing, it's just it's outrageous.
There was I have a post on my wall from SOT. It's
I'll go look for it.
Okay, might not be there. You might have to look on the page itself.
Okay.
That says the to get off chemtrails for a second, but the GMO and the fluoride and all the crap they're adding to our water and food isn't just hurting us badly. It's changing the way our body takes in food. So what they want to do is change the food so it changes your digestive system, so when you eat something healthy, it makes you incredibly sick.
Right. One thing that I noticed is that the chemtrails and the fluoride, they may be working together, because the fluoride in your system actually increases your aluminum absorption. So you absorb more of it, more of the aluminum from the chemtrails when you have fluoride in your water.
And it causes dementia. Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Yeah, the aluminum can't be good.
No.
Once it oxidizes and it becomes the aluminum oxidized, it forms plaque in human arteries and increases risk of stroke, heart attack from a metal biological mixture. And when the aluminum accumulates over time, it causes major neurological damage, ending up as aluminum oxide that'll stick in place and can't be flushed out by normal immune systems. So yeah, it's definitely not something that's going to be good.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And we've had it and it's funny because our parents and their parents before them went through the Depression and the war and stuff. And it's been in the canned soups, and it's been in the canned beans, and it's been in the canned everything for how long? And then when they get metal oxide poisoning, they can't, they get Alzheimer's, and they have all these other diseases and stuff that happens to their system.
I can actually speak a bit towards the food making people sick when they eat healthy stuff. I have a friend who eats nothing but garbage, and her and her boyfriend used to come over for dinner, and I've always been a pretty healthy cook. I was raised that way. My grandparents had gardens and stuff. It was always fresh food, and you always went to a butcher, and you always went to farmers you trusted. So I guess I have had the upper hand. But she'd come over, and I'm talking, this is a person who eats nothing but, takeout and fast food and stuff like that, right? And she'd come over and have dinner, and it'd be healthy stuff, and she'd be like, oh my God, I was on the toilet for an hour the next day. What, did you cook that properly? And I was like, yeah, we were fine. So you can see how the different foods and the different, I think everything combined is changing our systems, and I don't think that, and I think that chemtrails are just another manipulation of that.
The vaccines, the mercury-based vaccines that they use in you.
Yeah, but let's get back to chemtrails because we're totally going off topic. I'm so sorry.
But it is all one.
Yeah, well, yeah, but we're focusing on chemtrails today. It's okay.
There's one thing I found that's actually a research report someone did on the chemtrails, or actually they did it on contrails and persistent contrails, and what they found was, actually here, I'll just read the summary of results for you here. It says, the goal of this research was to determine if there was a type of trail that was inconsistent with normal contrails, especially with regard to increased persistence. What was found is that highly persistent trails that last for many hours were seen above Houston on 60% of the observable days during the data collection period. However, during this time, none of the 46 Flight Explorer confirmed contrails observed persisted for over 30 minutes, and most contrails were under 30 seconds of persistence. Additionally, it was discovered that the jets that were responsible for leaving highly persistent trails that lasted for hours did not appear on the Flight Explorer and were documented for 8 separate instances, including one instance with 2 jets in formation. So basically what this is saying is that all of the chemtrails come from unmarked aircraft that are not registered on the Flight Explorer, which means that they're either military or they're private companies that are registered with the military.
Bullshit.
So that's a lot of people out there are saying that they come from commercial aircraft. It does seem that they do come from commercial aircraft, but they are not commercial flights. It's the military using the same planes as the commercial airplanes and modifying them to spray.
I don't mean to sound dumbed down, but it just makes me feel very uncomfortable. The more, and I'm like, not to say that I don't want to talk about it, that's not what I mean, but none of this is in the public, like, there's no real conversation being had, and when you see the news is just constantly saying it's all conspiracy theory. And now the Canadian government saying, I guess in a back conversation that was overheard, that they're going to have to bring it to the table and explain it now. But so obviously with their spin. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I was just going to add a little bit onto that. And I think Don already mentioned it just a little bit earlier about the Council on Foreign Relations discussion on geoengineering, that they did admit to spending tens of millions to deliberately confuse the public.
That's ridiculous. How can they stand up there and say that? And how is it that nobody's sitting back and going, well, what the hell's going on? Everybody's just looking up at the sky and going, oh, look at the pretty clouds. Because the wispy clouds can be really pretty if you don't know what they are. And I think that's what people are doing, going, oh, look at the clouds, aren't they pretty? They look like angel wings, la-di-da. Because that's what people are saying. Look at this picture I took. It looks like an angel. And it's a freaking chemtrail spreading out.
That's horrible.
It is. And then you explain what it is, and they're like, oh, come on, they wouldn't be doing that. And if they're doing it, it's obviously for something good, because you know global warming, facepalm, huge, huge fail.
Yeah, they say it's for global warming, so that they can combat the global warming and deflect sunlight and harmful UV rays. And they want to do that by putting chemical dusts in the atmosphere, which is also known as the aerosol geoengineering.
Okay, and I'll go a little conspiracy and silly here and say, okay, so they're deflecting vitamin D from us?
Yeah, it doesn't sound right.
Really though, because that's what that feels like to me. What this feels like to me is they don't want me going out and soaking up the sun, because they've said sun's good for you. You need the vitamin D. Obviously, everything in moderation. You're going to burn if you stay out in it too long, you dummy. But I wouldn't be using sunscreen or anything like that, and I don't want them doing anything to deflect the sunlight, because last I checked, I need that shit. I guess I should do a little bit of a, you're listening to freethinkradio.com. This is Lifting the Veil. I'm Cari-Lee. I'm with Don Haze and Steve, and John's in the background. We're talking chemtrails. At 6 o'clock, you've got Pete and Pepe, I think, tonight. Usually Kate's here, but right now she's in the middle of moving things and whatnot. So she'll be back soon, I hope. So 4 p.m. Eastern is late with Kate. 5 p.m. is an open slot. We've got to fill that. People have things to say. I know they do. So don't be chicken. Come out and do it. 6 p.m. is Pete and Pepe. 7 p.m. is the True North Show with Nelson and Trevor. 8 p.m. is, tonight we have Brian Forrester will be joining True North for a 2-hour interview. And if you don't know anything about him, and you should because he's super cool, he was born in Rochester, Minnesota, but grew up on the west coast of Canada. At age 11, he became fascinated with Native art and the Haida Native people, or Haida Native people, and began carving totem poles and other related art forms, learning from Native teachers. After completing an honors Bachelor of Science degree, Brian decided to take up carving and sculpture full-time at the age of 25, Easter Island. In 1995, he moved to Maui, Hawaii, and was hired as an assistant project manager for the building of the 62-foot double-hull sailing canoe, ancestor of the modern-day catamaran. He's just an incredibly he has incredibly diverse cultural taste, and is going to be a fantastic interview for the boys at True North. So tune into that from 7 till 9. Usually at 8 o'clock we have Awake and United with Chris Flowers, and on Fridays John Miller, my husband. But tonight they're bowing out of the show so they can have a 2-hour slot for the interview with Brian, which is going to be, like I said, fantastic. You'll want to tune in for that. 9 p.m. you've got the UFO Hour with host Blings. 10 p.m. is Deaths of the New World Order with host Harry Link. 11 p.m. is your show, a show where you get to call in and have your say and be the host. And we need people to call in because you're not, and you gotta, because it can be fun. And so if you want to call into the show, the number is 315-541-4031. Hit the call me scup. Call me. I do that every show. There's one word that I just can't. Yeah, Skype. Add us to Skype, Free Think Radio, no spaces, no caps, or hit the call me button. So back to chemtrails. Go ahead, somebody talk.
The next thing I want to bring up here is recently there was a Russian politician that said that they had a secret weapon that can kill millions of people. What he said actually is there's lots of money, resources, and new weapons that no one knows about. With them, we will destroy any part of the planet within 15 minutes. Not an explosion, not a ray burst, not some kind of laser, not lightning, but a quiet and peaceful weapon.
He was raving like a madman when he was saying all this.
Yes.
Like, he was freaking.
I put the link into the chat. You can check out the video. Yeah, that guy's pretty crazy.
Crazy like a fox, maybe?
But, the chemtrails, if you observe them, they can pretty much cover the entire sky within a couple hours. So that might be what he's talking about here. I'm not exactly sure, though. There is a lot of disinformation out there. Another thing he could be talking about is, like, the HARP system. But
yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
John, thoughts on HARP? You know what? I don't, I understand a little bit. It's one of those things, again, I don't understand enough of it. It makes me feel extremely uncomfortable. I don't like the idea of all that power in anybody's hands. But John will talk about HARP.
I'm not an expert, so don't hold me to anything I'm saying. Do your research for yourself, obviously. HAARP cell ask, we all know that. It's all radio frequency waves that go into the ionosphere and microwave it to do what it was originated for was to, first of all, send signals to underwater submarines that they didn't want picked up or traced by the Germans, Nazis, or the enemy. Now they can do whatever. I mean, you could even probably bring it into Project Bluebeam. What I've researched, it's a possibility it can cause earthquakes and other modified weather conditions like hurricanes and whatnot, like tsunamis. It's definitely not something that it's used for us. I believe that back when Ronald Reagan was even in office, when he said we're going to go for Star Wars, that was part of HAARP as well. I mean, to deflect missiles off their guidance patterns and disrupt any weaponry in them so they become useful in duds without a warhead. But yeah, there's evidence out there that people are posting and whatnot that showed that when Japan got rocked by that major earthquake, that HAARP was on a frequency of such a level for so many days before it happened, and then when it happened, it was off. And chemtrails, well, all the crap in them, all the metals and chemicals in them, if they're getting zapped with microwave ions, I mean, they become electric. So I mean, that has to have something to do. It can't be good. Something has to, come from that. It's just crazy. I seen a video on YouTube where you seen this guy. He was out in a boat, and it was somewhere in the Middle East, and he seen dolphins getting wiped out and cooked from the inside with big scars on them. And you've seen this. It looked like an energy bolt coming from the sky, from the clouds. It looked like one big
white funnel.
Yeah, a big, huge lightning bolt, but it stayed there for a long time. And then he showed the burnt dolphins.
You got to get a link for that. Grab a link for that, because we saw that, and it was awful, because the dolphins were baked, they were fried. It was disgusting. We watched it the other days. He's going to go search for that, but anybody else wants to talk about it now? Because he's looking. I should say, though, that at 5 p.m. till 7, BK will be on over at slimswazy.com. And then you guys can come back here for Brian Forrester from 7 to 9 on the True North Show. So again, that's 5 p.m. today till 7. BK will be over at slimswazy.com. And then, like I said, come back 7 to 9 for the True North Show. So for Brian Forrester in that interview, it's going to be great. And then, Steve, do you want to talk about the moratorium?
Sure, okay. There was a few of them. There was one with the United Nations and one with Green Party Canada. I'm sure there was more than that, but that's what I have in front of me. For the geo-engineering moratorium on the United Nations, it was held in October 2010 in Japan, and basically it says that it was a de facto moratorium on geoengineering projects and experiments, and that any private or public experimentation or adventurism intended to manipulate the planetary thermostat will be in violation of this carefully crafted UN consensus. That was stated by the director of the ETC group. It was a 2-week meeting, which included 110 environment ministers, and the governments were asked to ensure that no geoengineering activities take place until the risks to the environment and biodiversity and associated social, cultural, and economic impacts have been appropriately considered. Also, with the United Nations moratorium still, it was an unusually strong consensus decision that was building on the 2008 moratorium on ocean fertilization. The attention has turned from that to a range of futuristic proposals to block a percentage of solar radiation via large-scale interventions in the atmosphere, stratosphere, and outer space that would alter global temperatures and precipitation patterns. A few other points. Decisions on geoengineering can be made by small groups of scientists from a small group of countries that establish self-serving voluntary guidelines on climate hacking. The UK Royal Society, which I think that David Keith has some association with, and their partners were asked to cancel their solar radiation management governance initiative and respect the world's governments that have collectively decided that future deliberations on geoengineering should take place in the UN, where all countries have a seat at the table and where civil society can watch and influence what they're doing. And that's a couple notes on the United Nations geoengineering moratorium in 2010.
I find it kind of strange. That happened at the end of 2010, and it happened in Japan. And just after that, Japan started spraying chemtrails. And then what happened? A couple months later, we get an earthquake.
A devastating earthquake, like not just an earthquake.
And that might just be coincidence, but you never know.
It all seems a bit much to be coincidence, though, right? It's like the puzzle just kind of almost goes together on its own. It's just that you don't have there's no definites, there's no definitives, there's nothing. It's all guesswork.
That earthquake in Japan you're talking about?
Yeah.
With the Fukushima and stuff like that?
Yeah.
There was actually a rumor that I heard, I think it was in February, to watch out between March 7th and 15th, that there was a comet Elenin that was supposed to be having some kind of a gravitational effect on Earth as it passed by us. And the rumor was that in between the 7th and 15th of March in 2011, that there would be a major natural disaster. And, then coincidentally was there was like 2 or 3 7.0s, and then I think it was maybe a couple 8 and 9.0s involving the Fukushima nuclear disaster there.
If I'm not mistaken, there was the same predictions last year for it, and it was the big earthquake in Chile, wasn't it?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I believe so.
Same time, and it has to do with the
Comet Elenin.
Yeah. And then
there's quite a few different, when there's people that have looked at the trajectory and found out when it lines up with certain planets and such, and then they make a prediction. And it seems that most of the time when these people make these predictions about Comet Elenin, I'd say about half of the time they're actually correct, and something really big does happen, like an earthquake or volcano or something to that effect.
It's the same with the solar flares too. The solar flares, I swear, have a connection to what's going on Earth-wise as well. Because whenever you see a solar flare, there's an earthquake and which makes me think, and this is just me, that between the universal flow that's making things happen, such as Elenin, and the solar flares, and the ideas of the chemtrails and HAARP being used together, if you took the solar flares and the universal together, that's quite a bit for the Earth to deal with. But if you throw chemtrails and HAARP on top of that to further manipulate what's already going on, I don't know. Like I said, that's just me theorizing and playing with it in my head.
Yeah, because that's all we can do, right? Is just throw out some theories until we get like actual government disclosure, I guess.
Yeah, that's funny. Government and disclosure in the same, you know? It's never good. I don't expect any government disclosure unless it's like 2 minutes before the bomb goes off. Not to sound dark and dismal, but I don't know.
I found this link. It's Our Home Remedies, the secret to your healthy lifestyle. And they're talking about chemtrails. Chemtrails, what should we do about them? And this was back in May 4th. And it says, as a report, Senator Tom Harkin spraying skies with chaff used in World War II as samples were taken without 6 bacteria, including anthrax and pneumonia, 9 chemicals, including chloride, 26 heavy metals, including arsenic, gold, lead, mercury, silver, uranium, and zinc, 4 molds, 7 fungus, 7 viruses, 2 cancers, 2 vaccines, and 2 sedatives. So I'll post that.
Yeah, and there's another thing about Elenin. There's also that that rumor out there that it's supposedly under intelligent control. It wasn't it Russia that came out and said something like that too? And then Don says here that it supposedly has a bunch of moons orbiting it too as well. And there's links for that. And I just don't have them, and I apologize to my listeners. But with all the information that we're telling you, you can very well go out and Google it all. There'll be an archive available by the end of the week, I'm sure.
Well, so there would have to be something mysterious going on with it, because I heard somebody say that as it went by the Earth, it manipulated our gravity or the pull on the Earth. Do you realize how big a comet would have to be to do that?
Yeah, massive.
Yeah.
Like the size of the moon. So, like, either it's intelligently controlled or there's something going wrong. Maybe there's elements on that we've never heard of before that interact with the planet or gravity, because just to be flying by and to disturb our planet rotation or gravity or anything like that, it would have to be one huge rock. But anyways, that's all I want to say.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's a lot of mystery around all of it. And, I mean, I want all the answers, and I want them right now, and it sucks that we don't have them. But until we can get something, if we ever do get something, all we can do is sit around and do this. And I'm really grateful that you guys wanted to come on and help to discuss this. And I think it's something that maybe we should do again. Maybe one Friday a month, come on and talk chemtrails and the like, and see where it goes. What do you guys think?
Sounds good to me.
Steve, you in? Would you come back on to talk shop again?
Yeah, definitely. And maybe next time I will maybe open up a little bit more.
No, you were great. You were great. It's hard because, there's 4 of us talking, and everybody wants to give the other a chance to talk, and some of us, like myself, don't stop. But we covered a lot, and we gave a lot of various, I think, views very quickly and nothing really in depth. And maybe next time we'll take one aspect of it and pick it apart until there's nothing left to it. Try and get rid of the disinformation if we can, and get whatever facts that we can to give people a better idea of what we're dealing with. It's going to be hard because we don't really have as many facts as we'd like. I'm sure you all agree. But Don just types millions spent to confuse us. It's just, I think though, I honestly believe that we've all got that feeling that it's ominous and it's not good. And how do we stop it? I don't know. I always joke and I say surface to air missiles, but the reality of that isn't exactly, I don't need CSIS at my door, thanks. But I said it out loud anyway. So any last thoughts from you, Steve, before we close off the show?
No, not much. I just wanted to say thanks again for having me on the show on freethinkradio.com. And also, I'm a bit of, if there's any listeners that are interested in maybe creating some political change, to visit the truthpartyproject.org. And that's all.
Excellent. It's been great having you on, and I look forward to doing this again. How about you, Don? Any final words?
Not really. There's a lot of disinfo out there, so I think it's really good that I think we should come back and do another show and dig a little bit deeper into the specifics here and try and root out some of this disinformation.
I think that's a fantastic idea, and I can't think of anybody better for the job to be helping out with this, because you are fantastic at sniffing out disinformation. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure, and I'm glad that you're willing to come on again. And yeah, so next time we do this, we'll let you guys know in advance that we're going to go farther down the chemtrail rabbit hole. Thanks to Don and Steve. John, honey, any last words?
No, we just do our research, people. Be good to one another, help one another out. But do your research and share.
Yeah, do your research and share for sure. Thanks everybody for tuning in. This has been Lifting the Veil. I'm your host, Cari-Lee, and has now been defined as the deliberate large-scale manipulation of the planetary environment to counteract anthropogenic climate change. The Royal Society, 2009. Recently, the question has been asked, what in the world are they spraying? The documentary with the same name answers many of those questions. For any of you who have not watched What in the World Have You Been Spraying, please run out and go get it. It's free online. You can also support the people who created it and help to bring this information out there for you by buying a copy of it. If anybody in the back area, and you don't know there's back people behind me kind of doing stuff for me if I ask them to. We all have those little people behind us on this show. If anybody could put what in the world have they been spraying in the free think chat, that'd be great. The question the world is now asking is, who in the world is spraying us? The world is now demanding answers and accountability. As an introduction to this article, we will first cover information to familiarize the uninformed readers as to the core facts and information so that a more complete understanding is possible, given this complex issue. A recent report by CBC Atlanta detailed how some local citizens are outraged that such crimes against humanity are being carried out right before our eyes in secret. In the report, Senator Johnny Isakis, why these names, blings, I know how you feel. Johnny Isakson, whatever, was interviewed on the subject of chemtrails, saying, quote, "That is a theory that some people have, but there's no evidence this is happening. This is not happening." Of course it isn't. It looks as if members of the government's upper echelon, now how can I say a word like that and I can't say his last name, and even members of the Senate will go to extreme lengths to suppress this vital information.
And they all have elevated levels of aluminum and barium, which are outlined in the supposed proposals for geo-engineering.
That's lovely. Now let's talk about some of the myths. Some of the information we've been given, and then, I don't know, go that way. Okay, so they're to reflect the sun upwards so that the planet doesn't heat too much. Is that what a lot of people are saying? Is that an agreed term? The definition?
Well, that's what the official thing is. They say that that's what it's for, but we're not quite sure, because it doesn't seem that these chemtrails actually do anything to help cool the planet. They actually heat it up.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a link for that too.
That's a myth. It's just one of the myths that are out there. And I mean, okay, you've got that, and then at the opposite end of the spectrum, you find disinformation or I guess it's the way you take it, spraying chemtrails to hide incoming objects from us, like Elenin or Nibiru.
That I don't really buy, because if that was true, then they would be spraying in every country, and it seems that these operations are only ongoing in NATO countries. In like Europe and America. It doesn't seem that they're spraying in Africa or Asia, so I don't think that has anything to do with it, but I could be wrong.
They started spraying in Japan around the time of the right before the earthquake, though, didn't they?
Yeah, actually, I was looking at the chemtrail map. Give me a second, I'll get you a link to it. And I did some research on chemtrails in Japan, and I found about 5 instances of chemtrails in Japan between the year 2000 and 2010. And then all of a sudden, right before...
from reaching the American people. Not to mention they signed off on the multi-billion-dollar-a-year budgets in the economic crisis with little to no transparency to the public. In regards to aerosol spraying into the Earth's atmosphere, a recent update to data assembled by the Cari-Lee Institute reveals the chemicals used and the respective levels of concentration. The toxic levels that are being used in these aerosols goes beyond shocking. It would appear that these levels are indeed criminal in EPA standards. Anybody want to start talking now about any of this? Because we can always go back to the note.
Well, this article here is talking about a geo-engineering budget, and I don't see the source for it.
As you go farther down in it?
Yeah, I'm going through it now, but the one thing I wanted to address first is that there was a CFR meeting, a Council on Foreign Relations meeting, where they said that there was millions being spent to confuse the public about geoengineering. So there's a lot of disinformation out there, and it takes a lot of research to find the truth.
Well,
and I'm another thing I want to say is none of us here are experts on the issue, so please don't take our word for it. Do the researching for yourself, and we're going to provide the links for you.
Yeah, for sure. None of us are sitting here saying that we have the absolute truth. We're all just, this is a big think tank today. This is us sharing and trying to figure out things and do it in a way that, you know, other people can listen to. And if you have questions, you ask them by all means in the chat or call in. Not for a bit, though, because I'm sure that we're going to babble quite a bit for the first little bit. Has anybody here seen the CBC doc for the chemtrails? Good day, good people. This is Lifting the Veil, and I'm Cari-Lee. You're listening to freethinkradio.com. It is June the 3rd, 2011. Today we're going to be talking chemtrails with my guests, Don Haze and Steve, and my husband, John. Because today's show I was prompted by actually Don Haze, who's with us today, to talk about chemtrails. Because there's a lot of disinformation out there, and there's a lot of questions, and there's a lot of semi-answers, I guess. And so we spent the week looking through links and looking at different articles and whatnot. Steve, excuse John, he's sick. Steve, Don, and myself, and John and I, you know, we do all our research together, so we're all going to talk chemtrails. Don, Steve, John, how you guys doing?
I'm doing all right.
Steve, how you be?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me on the show, Cari.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you both for coming on the show. John kind of, you know, he gets roped into it. Right, baby?
That's it. I don't mind.
Okay, so the first thing that came up for me today was from the Intel Hub, and I'm just going to go over it, and then you guys can give me your thoughts on what I read. I should probably post this into the chat so that everybody else can take a look at it too. So here I go. And There's that article that I'm going to start reading now. Secret presidential chemtrail budget uncovered. Congress exceeds billions to spray populists like roaches. Dun, dun, dun. The budget Obama didn't want you to know about. Geo-engineering spraying that they put out a couple months ago. I can't even remember the name of it.
They put out a whole documentary on it?
Yeah, they did on the geoengineering. What the heck was the name of it? Oh. But they talked about it, and they showed the positive and negative, but it was it was very one-sided for sure. But they did show that I don't know. It was like a veiled bit of propaganda that you could see that, yeah, there's a downside to it, but it's not that much of a downside, and it's not that big of a deal. But there are no questions. Playing God with the weather, that's what it was called. Let me go find that. Anyway, go ahead, somebody else talk.
Okay, so, well, in this CFR meeting, I posted the link in the chat. There's a video to it, and the one guy in it says, first of all, of course, there's a lot of money getting spent to make sure that every substantial portion of the public stays totally confused about this. And I mean, it's been really quite pernicious, but there's been literally tens of millions of dollars spent on every little thing that comes along that might, relate to some uncertainty.
Well, of course, because they don't want anybody to have a definitive, because if there's a definitive, then nobody would want it to happen, and it wouldn't happen. There can't be a definitive answer to it, and everybody's got to be at war with each other. That it seems like that's the main goal for everything. But let's get into what they've shown to be in the chemtrails. Does anybody have any links to that, or am I going to go back to that?
Yeah, I got a link for that.
Okay.
It's toxic levels of barium and aluminum found in several Mojave County, Arizona residents, and it's fairly new. And they took blood tests.